Minerva is a deck that's able to do double Vanguard attack and also multi-attack with rearguards as well. It uses the soul as a resource, similarly in the past as Genesis as a clan before. Overdress was a thing to begin with. And cards like Chamomile and Melissa are able to superior call themselves to create a field, but also thanks to Chamomile, you're able to have multi-attack. Furthermore, the deck has other cards to enable multi-attack without relying so much on the Vanguard skill, such as Stasus. So there's some flexibility there as well. Of course, this deck is going to rely on crit triggers as well to have more pressure with the Vanguard and take advantage more with a Persona Ride as well. Check out Dueling Guard's deck boxes, playmats, and binders. The great quality products that are anime based. They continually have more anime options becoming available. Use the affiliated link in the description for a 5% discount on your next purchase. So starting off with the ride line, you have Vivid Rabbit and then into Melissa. And really the effects are very similar with her, Melissa, and Chamomile. And so whenever you ride the next card in grade, you check the top 5 to pick 2 cards and put it into Soul. So as you're riding up naturally, you're actually filling your Soul with the resources that you need. Ideal targets are such as grade 3, so that way Minerva's passive 5k skill is active immediately as well. And this can make your grade 1s become 8k to 13ks that actually can hit Vanguards on their own as well if need to be. Furthermore, they're used as Soul Blast fodder to be able to call itself, but also Melissa has a Soul Charge ability that you want to use as well. Coming back to Minerva's passive skill, it's very important too because each attack is going to see it moving forward too. The sooner the better as well. And it just needs to see a grade 3 with Regalia in the name. And so as you ride up, you can grab one of another copies of itself or Angelica and be good to go. You also have an Axe skill where you can Soul Blast one, check the top card, and you can either leave it on top or you can Soul Charge it. This is also ideal to see if you want to Soul Charge a combo piece potentially, or if you see a trigger that can also dictate the rest of the turn if you want to like keep it on top. And so you take advantage of your dry checks, especially if it's a crit. The other skill is that at the end of the battle, if your opponent's a grade 3 or greater, you can Counter Blast 1, Soul Blast 3, and then discard a Genesis card to be able to restand and it gets minus drive 1. And so it is locked behind with your opponent's Vanguard being grade 3, keep that in mind, but you can still do the rearguard multi-attack with other cards that Soul Blast during the battle phase still. But I feel like the restand with the Vanguard is the most important thing to do moving forward. Now for the main deck, we have 3 more copies of Minerva. You want to do Persona Ride. It's also a grade 3 with a Regalia name, which is what you want to Soul Charge anyway. And to further the boost consistency of Persona Riding, we are playing the Gratias Gradile, the cup essentially order. You could also swap this out with Bracing Angel Ladder if that's something that you want to play more seriously in a metagame against Shiranui right now, especially if you're going to like a regionals, for example, too. That's totally a valid choice. But if you're not playing Bracing Angel Ladder or you can't get your hands on it because it is a pricey card, this is your fallback option as well. We are also playing 4 copies of Angelica. This card is actually really good because 1, you're able to countercharge, 2, it puts itself into Soul, which is fulfills the Minerva's condition, and it also fuels enough Soul just to make sure that you do keep a grade 3 in Soul, which is very impactful. And it also gives Minerva 5k as well, so that way the swings are a little bit bigger too. Minerva's passive skill and this makes it a 23k column by itself already, and then anything additional is just extra. Now for the grade 2s, we are playing 3 more copies of Chamomile. Again, you want as many of these in the Soul, and so whether you Soul Charge them by, from the deck or even from the drop, this is something that you can keep using to extend multi-attack. Also keep a note with an 8k booster, and thanks to Minerva's 5k passive skill, it makes 23k columns too, and then on Persona Ride turns, it makes 33k. So it actually makes some decent numbers, so your multi-attack is still worth doing. We're also playing 4 copies of Thasus, and so this card is actually really cool. 1, it enables us to do the Soul Blast during the battle phase that we want to do. It retires itself, so it removes itself, and then you can choose a card either from your hand or drop and put it into Soul. And if you so happen to Soul Charge the one from hand, then you can draw a card as well. 9 times out of 10, you're going to be Soul Charging back the Chamomiles that you Soul Blasted prior to keep those in the Soul, essentially. The other skill is just as important too. When it's placed, you can check the top 3 cards and actually Soul Charge one of them, and then you bottom deck the rest as well. What's interesting, if you call this early on, especially in your turn 2, this labels set up a little bit better, but then once you ride to grade 3, you can use Chamomile to shuffle the deck as well. So if you feel like, oh crap, I'm bottom decking triggers or something like that, this shuffle will fix that later on too. 4 copies of Biscotti. So this is one of the new cards from the Divine Set 1. This is definitely a plus for Minerva. And so essentially, since Minerva inherently does not use the energy mechanic, cards like these are basically able to draw cards when you discard for ride, Or you can also guard with these and just get another card that way too. You have the optional cost of using a Counterblast too in case you don't have enough energy, but more than likely you'll be energy blasting 3 for each time you use this card, digging in a little bit deeper for those combo pieces that you want from Minerva as well, while keeping some hand size too, because you also need some hand size to like survive turns as well. What's also interesting about this card is that if you do Persona Ride and then use its skill either CB1 or Energy Blast 3, you can check the top 3 cards and essentially stack the top one or call it to Rearguard Circle as well. So you have some flexibility there, but it also makes those turns a little bit scarier too if you have the extra resource to use. And to go along with Biscotti, we have 2 copies of Cutie Angel Stall. So this is basically the cycler as well, back where you Soul Blast 1, bottom deck this card and draw a card. Biscotti just comes up more often too, and it's better in my opinion when it comes to this deck. But you still want to have extra cyclers to dig a little bit deeper too, so I feel like 6 in total would be really good for this deck. You can see this as like the 5th and 6th copy of Biscotti essentially. But what's also nice is that you can Soul Blast Melissa too during your ride phase, so that way you start building a field for free that way, and then Melissa can further Soul Charge as well too. So essentially the Soul Blast is free in a way, while setting up your board essentially. The other skill is also really good when it comes to Persona Riding too. On those turns you can Counterblast 1 and actually check the top 2, add 1 to hand, and then the second card you could leave it on top or bottom deck it. It's really up to you at that point. Those skills don't come up as often because you're prioritizing the Counterblast with Minerva, with the Chamomiles for example, but you still have access to this just in case. Now to the grade ones, we're playing 4 copies of Aurelium. This card is actually pretty cool too because on place you can Counterblast Soul Blast 1, draw a card, and then reveal a card that's equal or less of grade to your opponent's Vanguard currently. If not, you would have to discard it essentially. So this digs a little bit deeper, but you have to be mindful of the CB as well and what you're Soul Blasting to. Just depends on your setup at that point. But I think the second skill is really the more utilized one because it's important, because at the end of the battle that this unit boosts it, you can shove the whole column itself into Soul, assuming that you have a Genesis Vanguard, and then grab a Genesis only card from your drop zone and add it to your hand. So this is really cool, getting combo pieces to be able to discard from Minerva's to discard Genesis cards essentially, while also putting back Chamomiles if you're boosting it essentially too. This could be also another way to like remove your field, especially against decks like Shiranui for example, or decks that just retire stuff anyway, such as Varga essentially. But this is good especially when you call Chamomile and then at the last few attacks you typically boost the Chamomile, and so this will shove it back into setting it up for the next turn as well. 3 copies of Cider. So this card is essentially typically used to bounce back as a free booster for the Vanguard column as well. This is used typically as a free booster because it will bounce itself as soon as you have a Vanguard with Minerva in the name after it boosts. This also can be the card that you discard with Minerva if need to be. The timing actually works out if you boost on the first attack. But also if you have a grade 3 insult with Regalia in the name, this becomes a 10k shield, which can come up in those awkward numbers that you have to guard with 10k as well. This is also a great card for Rahelion too, so that way not only you're getting combo pieces for like Persona Ride, but this also adds to like defensive quality as well. 2 more copies of Melissa, and so Melissa it's another Genesis card that we can utilize. We only have so many options when it comes to Genesis cards, but you do want to have a decent amount, and I was able to reduce this to 2 in addition to what's in the right line. But this card is also a good booster to call because it's free, and then essentially you're able to continually soul charge if you want to as well. We have 3 PGs and then 1 Sanctitude since we're a grade 3 deck. Onto the triggers, we have 4 effect crits. Sometimes this may come up where you shove this into Soul and actually get the Soul count that you need for Minerva moving forward, especially if your games become grindy in the sense too. Also, if you have that 8k boost now, if you make Minerva with the +2, you start making those like new thresholds that make better numbers too as well. 4 more crit for more pressure, and in essence a 9th crit, quote unquote, because of the blue OT. So the Catter Sanctuary OT is not bad, but it's not great, and so you rather appreciate just the extra crit pressure, and then the fact that you can get a card from the drop zone to your hand. You can get a combo piece like a Persona Ride copy as well, or even just like defensive quality if need to be as well to survive the following turn. You have 3 effect draws, so I want to go this route because it's a bit of a combo deck in a sense too. You want to make sure you have a healthy hand, and Minerva seeing Twin Drive and then 1 drive, that you're more likely to see triggers in your drive checks too as well, since you are decked in on top of that. 3 normal heal and then 1 effect heal of your choice depending on the metagame. If you're going against like Shiranui and Varga, I would definitely switch this out for the one that restands. I think that's a little more useful in this metagame. But again, it's up to your metagame that you're currently at locals or regionals. An example Persona Ride turn, you get +15 to the front row in total with her skill as well. You can attack with this one first, Soul Blast and retire, put something into Soul, and also kind of blast to call the Chamomile. You could do Angelica next, similar. Soul Blast onto the Chamomile, Counter Charge, and then Counter Blast for this one. This will go into Soul. Give your Vanguard plus 5k as well. You can attack with the Chamomiles first too. Then Vanguard swing, boosted. After drive checks, skill, Counter Blast 1. You could also bounce this and discard this as well if needed. Soul Blast 3 cards. These 3 cards. Stand your Vanguard, double Chamomile, Counter Blast 2 and call over. You can attack again for more trigger pressure, and then this can attack, and then this can attack. And that's the deck profile, amigos. I hope you enjoyed it too. Thanks to the inclusion of the Divine Set 1, Minerva did get a bit of a boost with Bascati, essentially just giving you a little bit of hand, using the energy counter a little bit better too, and then some flexibility with like Cutie Angels, especially if you don't have some yet. BSF events are having like those Cutie Angels being in participation packs. So you can pick those up too if you want to add more. You're more than welcome to. I know other decks like Varga, for example, literally play 8 copies of Cyclers, essentially. So if you want to go more aggressively on that, you can. Just be wary of the Genesis cards in your main deck, because you do need the Genesis cards specifically for certain effects too. It's a solid deck too, and you know, in the BSF, I can see it being as one of those contenders too. I would definitely advocate and encourage like a more top deck in being your team lineup too, if you want to top at that point too, such as like Shiranui or Varga. Those come to mind right off the back, but obviously there's a lot of good decks just coming from this set and other old decks that are gaining support from it, just like an example of this as well. If you want to support the channel, use the affiliate links such as like TCG Player, 50 Card Shop, Trading Card Min, Card Trader 0. And if you want to increase your anime swag, check out Dueling Guard's phenomenal anime products, especially now that Wave 6 is out as well, and more to come as well. Until the next time, amigos.